Don at Airbrush Techniques Magazine, howtoairbrush.com. We're going to go over the VEDA WD 180. It's a airbrush made in China. They retail for $29.99. It's hard to buy anything for that kind of money these days. Comes in this nice box with a spare needle, a 0.3 millimeter, and tip, a wrench to get the tip off for a quick change. The reason I'm doing this video is on the magazine website now. If you go there, AirbrushTechniquesMagazine.com, you'll see we have a large part of the website is now reviews, so that you can go there and review airbrush equipment that you've used, help others make a more informed, educated buying decision. They can look up the review, see what other artists have to say about it, and it'll help them spend their money more wisely. This is the VEDA 180 WD. It's a gravity feed airbrush. It comes with a 0.2 millimeter needle and nozzle. It has a MAC valve to adjust the airflow, like a lot of other airbrushes. It has an adjustment in the back. It allows for needle travel back and forth and limit your needle travel. Cutaway handle for easy exposure to the needle. It has an Iwata type air fitting on it. I've been using this airbrush for about 2 weeks with solvent-based paint. It hasn't missed a lick. I've had no problems with the seals, and if you're going to have problems with seals in an airbrush, solvent-based paint's going to eat them up. And so far this one stayed good. No leaks, no problems. I'm not sure what this proves, but it's capable of doing some very fine lines. But as with any airbrush, it's only as good as the hand that holds it and controls it. This is about 30 pounds of air pressure. It's a nice airbrush. If you have a small hand, it'll fit your hand well. It's not real heavy like a VL is. Has nice trigger action. The trigger is about as tall as most other comparable airbrushes. $29, and you can hardly buy anything for $29. You can hardly go to McDonald's for $29 anymore. I'll unhook it, we'll take it apart and put it back together and see what makes it tick on the inside. The airbrush unhooked comes apart just like pretty much any other airbrush. We'll take the back handle off. Make sure you have something to put parts in so they don't roll away. Pull the needle out. Looks like a Grix, an Iwata, just about any other airbrush you could name. Has a 2-piece trigger. Just unscrews. There's a little rubber gasket in there. If you're going to take the tip off, you use your tip wrench. Make sure you're turning it the right way. comes off nice and easily. There's another little washer on the back of the tip. Make sure when you put the nozzle or the tip back on that that little tiny rubber gasket's there. Now you just clean the airbrush. To put it back together, it's just in the reverse. Start it by hand. Make sure you're not cross-threading it. Now when you go to tighten this with a wrench, be very careful not to over tighten it because you'll snap it off real easily. So just get it snug. Screw the air cap back on, make sure the little rubber washer's there. Put the cap back on, just screws, hand tight is fine. Install the trigger. Make sure that the slot is going the length of the airbrush so the needle can slide through. When the trigger is installed properly and it fits down in there, you should be able to push down on the trigger and it'll spring back up. Be careful because the only thing that holds this trigger in is the needle. So at this point in the assembly you want to be careful. Don't turn it upside down or whatever. The trigger will fall out on you. This little lever, the arch part points to the back. Put it in there sort of sideways. I always use the blunt end of the needle to get it so it's up against the back of the trigger. So the arch part of that little part goes to the back of the airbrush. This has a slot in it. Make sure that it fits in the slotted area correctly behind the trigger. The spring. Turn this spring tensioner in. Chucking nut back on, loose. And at this point, you may want to take a little super lube and put just a little tiny bit on the needle. Wipe it off. It doesn't take much. Carefully insert the needle. And you can feel when it goes up against the tip. You don't want to force it. It just should sit in the tip snugly. Screw the chucking nut. As you can see, when you move the trigger, the needle's now moving. Back handle back on. And it should be good to go. Get back up to the air and you're good to go. That's the VEDA WD 180 double action gravity feed airbrush. Retails for $29.99. Be sure you go to Airbrush Techniques Magazine. Look through all the airbrush products we have online now that you can review, and please take the time to review a few of the products you have used. I'm sure your fellow airbrush artists, when it comes time for them to buy new equipment and they're researching what they should buy, I'm sure that your review or rating of the products on there will help them make an informed, educated buying decision. It's AirbrushTechniquesMagazine.com. This is the VEDA WD 180 double action airbrush. Until next time, this is Don, Airbrush Techniques Magazine, howtoairbrush.com. It's just paint.